Hello, everyone. Come on in, take your virtual seats. It's great to see a lot of familiar names here and quite a few new ones as well. So welcome, we're glad to have you here with us, whether this is your first ARIN meeting or your 48th. This is the second and final day of our public policy meeting of portion of ARIN 48 with an election forum and members meeting yet to come at later dates. Go ahead and move on to the next slide. Welcome to the ARIN Board of Trustees. We're glad to have you here today, and we give you a virtual nod. Thanks for all you do for ARIN. Moving on. Same for the ARIN Advisory Council. Thanks for everything you do for ARIN as well. We are glad to see you today. Thanks for being here, and hats off to you. And the NRO Number Council as well. Hello and welcome to the meeting. Great to have you here and have you participate as well. So I'm sure you've been at a million Zoom meetings by now and you're a pro. So I'm just going to very briefly take you through how to make the most of the platform for this meeting. You may find the Q&A panel a little bit different than some other webinars you've been to. So we're going to be using the chat for informal conversations amongst other attendees, which I see you're already doing great at. And then if you have something you'd like to put on the record and you want to be sure that the presenters see, you'll just go down to the bottom of your Zoom pane and click on that Q&A tab. And that will take you to where you can put in your question and it will be read into the meeting if you do that. Or if you have a more lengthy contribution, please go ahead and raise your hand, that little button also in the bottom, and then that'll put you into the queue to have the opportunity to unmute your mic and speak to everyone yourself. In any case, as usual, please remain professional, stick to the topic at hand, and follow the ARIN standards of behavior. When you use the chat, Zoom will default to the panelists only, so change that setting to everyone if that is your intention. Our Board of Trustees chair will be moderating the policy discussions, and as always, be sure to type, or if you've raised your hand and are speaking, please speak your name and affiliation. Very important. And just a few more points of information. We are recording this meeting and it is being live streamed in real time, and you can refer to any of the slides that you will see today, and the transcripts are available as well. As you've probably already noticed, the meeting website has not only the registration, but lots of other goodies. You can feel free to check those out as well, including the agenda, speakers, and much more for each of the meeting days. So with that, I'd like to thank our network connectivity sponsors, USI and Lumen. Thank you. Now, at a very high level, on the agenda for today, we have a report from our Government Affairs Department, 4 more project reports from the community grant recipients, and then we get into the highly anticipated policy block, during which 3 draft policies will be on the floor for discussion. And then on the second agenda slide here, you can see that we'll finish up the day with a series of updates from our registration services department, the number resource organization, the NRO NC, and board chair. Then rounding out the day, we'll have another open microphone session. And during that, you can feel free to ask any questions or bring any topics up that you'd like. So as you can see, we have a great day in store for you. And I will get started by introducing our first presenter of the day. Einar Bolin is going to give us the Government Affairs Department report. And I can let you take it away, Einar.
Thank you, Jennifer. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can hear and see you.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. I'm Einar Bolin. I'm the VP of Government Affairs. Next slide, please. This is the table of contents. We'll talk about the composition of the team. We'll see the areas of focus of the department. We'll dive down a little bit into activities in the Caribbean, law enforcement and public safety activities, and international internet regulation engagement, and then a look at 2022. Next, please. This is the team today. Myself, Leslie Nobile, who is the Senior Director of Trust, and Public Safety. And Bevel Wooding is the Director of Caribbean Affairs. As you'll note, I am not on Rochelle Lene. She left last month to go to the ITU. She's the director of the local office in Africa, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And she was with us for about 4 years. I think she left way too soon, but I am wishing her all the success at the ITU. And as everyone knows, you can never really leave the RER system. We will still be working with her closely, and she will still have the wishes of the RER system in her mind. Next slide, please. Areas of focus. I've taken this text from a document that was published in March of this year. It came from the Board of Trustees, and these were the areas that really resonated with me as what this department, the Government Affairs Department, does and should do. So we protect the multi-stakeholder approach, the PDP, and essentially promote and protect the RER system. And within that, we strive to improve the accuracy and trust of the registry system, and we engage with governments to support their needs and to keep them informed of the perspectives of our community. And as an entire section of the directives from the board, there was this section devoted to outreach and engagement in the Caribbean to support the strengthening and resiliency of the internet infrastructure, to have strong government relations in that region, and to make sure that our services are well known to the internet community in the Caribbean. Next slide, please. Caribbean Affairs. Bevel Wooding, as I noted, is the director. He's been strengthening and maintaining relationships with governments and industry groups, including the ones listed here, such as the CTU, Canto, OECS, CARICOM, Caribnog, and I just learned about a new one this morning called APEX. I'll give you more information about that in a moment. The engagement areas here that are in bold were activities that were hosted or co-hosted by ARIN, and as a result, there is a blog that Bevel Wooding did on the ARIN website, so you can read about the outcomes of those activities. The upcoming event, well, it was upcoming yesterday, but actually it's a 2-day event and it started this morning, 9 to 12. This is the ARIN Caribbean Agency for Justice Solutions jointly hosted forum for judicial officers and for legal professionals. This morning there were about 50 judges and justices, not only from the Caribbean, but from the US as well. And that's really something that we want to focus on going forward, is to make sure that events that we do, that the department leads, are actually, that it's well known that they're open to all governments in the ARIN service region. There was a fabulous keynote this morning about ICTs and their use in court systems. And I think it was important to remember from that keynote that it isn't the use of ICTs, it's not the judges or even the lawyers that are important to the users of the judicial system. When people go to courts, they want justice. And so I thought it was really interesting that the keynote spoke about how it should be outcomes that drive our activities, and I take that to heart. Themes that we see over and over in discussions in the Caribbean include digital transformation, security and resiliency, and capacity building initiatives. Next slide, please. So I just mentioned digital transformation, and that's, of course, a buzzword today. It's about getting economies online and reaping the benefits of citizens having access to the internet, businesses getting online, governments getting online. And an interesting statistic is that for the United States in 2018, 10% of the GDP was accounted for by internet activity, internet business. And so in other words, the US GDP was over 20 trillion and $2.1 trillion was created through internet business. Everybody wants their share of, they want their GDP to go up and they want their share of the GDP to be boosted by internet activities. Another statistic I have here is came about from a question from a colleague at a meeting a couple weeks ago who asked me if I knew if the internet had stagnated or retreated or increased because of COVID. And I Googled it, and I had a feeling, of course, just by reading the media, that we know that people went online because of COVID. But what real impact was seen? And an article that came up right away was this statistic about the growth of peak traffic. It was consistent from 16 to 19 at 30% a year. And last year, peak traffic grew 47%. And I think that shows the resiliency of the internet and that just how important it is. Next slide, please. This is another main focus of the department. Leslie Nobile works closely with law enforcement and public safety organizations in order to help them gain a better understanding of how the internet registry system works and how some of our services and tools may be able to help them accomplish their missions. Some of the engagement here is with the FBI, Department of Justice, the Canadian RCMP, Europol, and Interpol. And then if you look at this first bullet, that M3AAWG is pronounced MOG, the Messaging, Malware, and Mobile Anti-Abuse Working Group. And Leslie's been engaged there. She's actually a co-chair of the Names and Numbers Committee. And this group was very interested to hear about ARIN activities regards RPKI and IPv6 policies as well. And part of the engagement is just to let them know, for example, this group and others, what ARIN does, what we can do and what we can't do. And those are important messages that we do no matter where we go. Upcoming. I'd like to highlight that with this ARIN 48 meeting and straddling 3 weeks, on the 4th of November, the department, and in particular Leslie, who's done the bulk of the work getting this organized, we're having a keynote and a panel on cybersecurity and the internet. So please be sure to tune in on the 4th. Themes when we engage with law enforcement and public safety have included data governance, which specifically refers to data privacy, accuracy, and access, critical infrastructure, internet infrastructure protection, anti-abuse, cybercrime, cybersecurity. These are all right at the top of law enforcement and public safety's agendas and priorities. Next slide, please. Government engagement, international internet regulation. So this is the third area after Caribbean affairs and law enforcement and public safety. And this is the area that I've been personally the most involved with. And most of that activity has been, to be honest, at CTEL and the ITU. CTEL's the local telecom organization for the Americas. It's part of the Organization of American States, and it is a telecom organization for North America, for Canada, the US, Central, South America, and the Caribbean. And a lot of its work feeds into the ITU. The ITU, of course, being the International Telecommunication Union. The ITU has three main parts. The R sector, which is about radio spectrum and satellite orbit spectrum, they call it. There's the D sector, which is the development sector, and the T sector, which is the telecom standard sector. Got three bullets here. The D sector, the development sector, is focused on meaningfully connecting the unconnected. And we support that role. These discussions give us plenty of opportunities to promote IPv6, which is also an ITU goal all by itself. We don't have much to do with the R sector, radio and satellite, at least not yet. We have engaged with governments at the ITU on telecom standardization. The T sector part, developing standards, well, backing up a sec, the ITU is a the ITU is a governmental standard development organization. So it's mostly governments making tech standards for telecom. They used to be focused on telephone, telegraph, radio, etc. But they are looking at the internet very hard. They also allow sector members and industry to participate. And in 2018, a sector member came with a proposal for the ITU-T to develop standards, protocols and architecture for a new parallel internet. And this was referred to at the time as new IP. The proponent, to help illustrate what he was talking about, said, think of the current internet as the post office. You can write a letter, stick it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, put it in the mail, and it'll get to its destination. Well, that's this current internet, he said. And new IP is like FedEx. It will bring lots of new potential services for guaranteed delivery, access control, many different things that the proponent says are desired in the future internet. And he was careful to clarify that these are parallel works, and new IP isn't intended to replace the current internet, but run alongside it. After a couple of years of discussions where this topic came up, new IP, no consensus to formally adopt this and work on it was taken. However, it's not going to go away. We continue to see proposals for work and things at the ITU that don't say new IP, but are related to something new. They're just continuing to come in different directions with smaller pieces. I have stir and shaken here, which are as a completely different topic. Stir and shaken come from the IETF. They're protocols to help mitigate spoofing. Everybody, I think, is probably familiar with getting a phone call where the number or the text displayed has nothing to do with who's actually calling. So the IETF is doing work, has done work to help mitigate that. And as a matter of fact, Congress told the FCC to make stir and shaken happen in the US. And there are FCC milestones for implementation. The first one was for large mobile operators to implement stir and shaken last month in September. And many of them did. And they are doing it, and it's having an effect already. Now, the reason stir and shaken is here under the category of CTEL and the ITU is that for international stir shaken to work, there needs to be coordination by someone. And the ITU has a role with telephone numbers. They're a registry, actually, for country codes and many other numbers regarding mobile telephony. And they have a role in number misuse and calling party number delivery, which essentially is what spoofing is violating. So the ITU is looking at stir shaken, early stages, but they're looking at it. The department is monitoring, so it's not engaging on site, the following categories. At the UN, they're working on essentially a cyber warfare treaty. The UN Office of Drugs and Crime is working on a cybercrime treaty. They're supposed to have their first meeting in January. The department's looking at GDPR and possible amendments, and the Network Information Security Directives, the NIS-1, which exists today, and the proposed NIS-2 might have impacts on the internet. Congress has multiple bills that would require reporting cyber incidents. That might have an impact on us and ISPs. Data privacy, there's nothing at the federal level. It's being left to the states. Looks like California is driving that the most, but there are a dozen other states, including Virginia, that have their own data privacy laws. And in Canada, we're looking at a proposed copyright law. Reason for that is it includes who is being recognized as a tool that can help figure out who's infringing on copyright. And their data privacy law is called PIPEDA. I forget what that stands for, but if that is amended, we would be interested in keeping an eye on that. And themes with governments include critical infrastructure laws and regulation, a different flavor of data governance. At this level, you have data sovereignty, privacy, and concern about cross-border flows. Digital transformation and cybersecurity are also government priorities. I see in the chat definition of PIPEDA. Thank you to our Canadian friends. Next slide, please. A view to 2022. So first of all, I'm not even going to hazard a guess about whether we go back to normal. I thought we would be further along in 2021. So since I would have been completely wrong last year, I'm just going to skip that piece. There are supposed to be a whole bunch of meetings next year, whether they're in person or hybrid or remote only remains to be seen. In any case, the department is going to work to strengthen relationships with the governments in our region to make sure that their interests are best served. We're going to, Bevel's done outstanding work in the Caribbean, and we're looking at that model of engagement, and we're going to make sure that the governments in our entire region know that they can participate and that they're welcome and invited to those events. And finally, we're going to look to increase monitoring of internet impacting legislation, regulation, and policy development in Canada, the Caribbean, the US, and other regions. Because policy changes and regulation changes could affect ARIN, they could affect operations of our customers, cost you money, essentially, to abide by them. Next slide, please. Here's my takeaway slide. Thank you very much, by the way, for the slide deck format. It was very fun to follow this time. The team is strengthening relationships with governments and internet industry organizations to make sure community interests are understood and taken into consideration. I think I'm at the end. Next slide. Thank you very much for the time. And if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address those.
Thank you so much. And at this time, if anyone has any questions, remember that you can raise your hand or you can type them into the Q&A question box. Remember to include your affiliation, please, for the record. And I'm holding for a minute to see if anyone is typing away. While I'm waiting, I will thank you, Mr. Einar Bolin, for our government affairs update. All right, it looks like there are no questions. It must be perfectly clear.
If there are no questions, I just would like to let people know that they can reach me directly, and I would be happy to touch base and talk about any of these topics at any time. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, folks, yesterday you remember we heard from Jennifer Bly regarding our grant recipients, and we have the much awaited second half of those recipient program updates. So we will continue with those now. We have 4 additional updates today. And I thank Ted for continuing to do the introductions for those. And I will get that started right now. Thank you.
First, we would like to welcome Glenn McKnight and Alfredo Calderon from the Virtual School of Internet Governance.
Good day, it's Glenn McKnight and Alfredo Calderon, and we're going to talk to you today about the Virtual School of Internet Governance. This is our second year of funding support, and we're very grateful to ARIN's community for supporting this program. So let me tell you a little bit about VSIG. VSIG is a team. Our team consists of Glenn McKnight, Lillian, and Alfredo. All 3 of us work hand in hand to deliver the program. So this is a very brief description of what we are doing. It's a comprehensive program. We use a program called Moodle, and it's a comprehensive program delivering from registration to delivery of the course. This is a quick overview of the org chart. We have on top an advisory council, and myself and Alfredo have different responsibilities to deliver the program. Let me tell you the vision. It's to create and promote a comprehensive free online capacity building program on internet governance for anyone, anywhere. What's our mission statement? To create a multilingual online training platform that allows novices and advanced students to learn the basics of internet governance, in addition to learning to network globally, exchange information, and improve their knowledge without any geographic or economic barrier. So our objectives and student benefits are very clear in the program, and I stress this is a free program, and we're dedicated to keep it free forever. I'm going to turn over to my colleague Alfredo to talk about where our students are from and other details.
Hi, I'm Alfredo Calderon, and I'm the co-founder of this Virtual School of Internet Governance. As you can see on the map, we have a sort of a distribution of the participants we've had so far, which consists of 407 actual participants. And you can see that we cover the ARIN region, North America, including Canada, United States, and Puerto Rico, and the Caribbean islands as well. Next slide, Glenn, please. Here you can have an idea. We've had so far a 7% participation from North America, which we seek to increase. The majority of our participation is from Africa and Asia Pacific, and we have a small group as well from Latin America. Having said that, next slide, Glenn. This gives you an idea of the 36 past guests we've had, including ARIN. Leslie Noble has participated as an invited guest, and we plan on having more participation from ARIN in future sessions. Next slide, Glenn. This gives you an idea of the participant survey results. 95% of all of them are very pleased or pleased with the course. Back to you, Glenn.
Great, thank you. We have 2 tracks currently. We have the Spanish track, as you can see on the left, and that's starting in September 13th, and the English track, Group E, in English, starting on September 6th. And both programs are full. We have an extensive selection process of selecting our fellows into our program, and this multilingual program is, as I stated before, it's one of our commitments. We have other languages on stream for 22. Portuguese and French are 2 of the languages we're looking at, and other languages that will be coming in the future will be Hindi, Bengali, and Chinese. So we've had some great testimonials from Lavesh as an example, thanking us for our hard work and what we created and benefiting all the graduates. And so if you're interested in getting in touch with us, here's our email addresses and our website. We more than welcome any of your questions or queries. Over to you, Alfredo.
Yes, I just want to emphasize that we are available through our emails account, and you can visit our website and keep up to date on what Virtual School of Internet Governance is all about. Thank you for your sponsorship, and we hope to hear from some of you. Thank you.
Our next recipient is Job Snyders with his project, RRDP Support for RPKI Client.
Hello, everyone. My name is Job Snyders. I'm a principal engineer at Fastly, and today I want to share with you an update on a project that happens in the OpenBSD community, specifically the implementation of RRDP in RPKI clients. RRDP is a fairly new means to synchronize data, RPKI data, from the signing entities towards the relying parties, the validators. And what makes RRDP stand out is that it was designed to distribute to crazy amounts of relying parties through the use of HTTP and HTTP caching. There were a few challenges implementing RRDP. The RRDP RFC is a little bit thin on how exactly RRDP and rsync, the other synchronization protocol, exactly should coexist. There's very little guidance on how a software application can implement the two synchronization protocols working together, but we figured out some cool tricks. Other things that were noteworthy in the implementation of RRDP was the bloated use of XML. XML doesn't really serve much of a purpose in RRDP, other than that it's sort of a very expensive field delimiter. Finally, what really surprised me is that there are data inconsistencies possible in RRDP. In the RRDP protocol, there are no inherent mechanisms to confirm the integrity or completeness of the data being transferred. Despite RRDP running over HTTPS, RRDP data is unauthenticated and unsigned. So whatever you receive via RRDP should always be taken with a grain of salt, and the cryptographic reality needs to match up to what you see in RRDP. RPKI client, the OpenBSD validator, stands out from other validators in that it is the only validator that uses process privilege separation to really split out the different tasks that exist in a validation run into different sub-processes, and each sub-process is further restricted or constrained to specific groups of system calls. So this means that the HTTP sub-process can talk to the internet and do, for instance, DNS lookups, but the XML RRDP parser is not able to connect to the network and only has access to specific pipes. And all of this activity exists to limit our risk surface in case a software defect slips into our software, and to sort of restrict the blast radius of potential problems. The RRDP implementation in OpenBSD was made possible by the ARIN community grant, for which we are thankful. The implementation, I think, positively impacted the RPKI ecosystem. Because of the OpenBSD implementation, we uncovered various CA repositories where load balancers were misconfigured in such a way that it would lead to data inconsistencies for RRDP clients. We uncovered some junk data that should not exist in RRDP feeds. All in all, I would argue that the OpenBSD validator has positively impacted the ecosystem and contributes in terms of diversity and perspective on how these protocols should work. So my recommendation to all CA operators is, if you're serving your RPKI data via RRDP, please also take a look at the OpenBSD validator to confirm that your implementation aligns with our understanding of the specifications. Thank you for the grants and your patience, and until next time.
Thanks so much. Next, we will hear from Phil Roberts with the Cryptech project.
Hi, I'm Phil Roberts. I'm here to represent the Cryptech open source project. We received a grant from ARIN this year, and it helped us accomplish our goals. I'd like to give you an update on the project, and thank you for helping us continue our project. Cryptech is an open source cryptography project. Our main target is for building hardware security modules. Hardware security modules are dedicated appliances for doing cryptography. We typically think about it as storing private keys and public key infrastructure and doing operations on those. They're very expensive. There are very few vendors, and those vendors are often tied to national interests, strong connection to various spy and intelligence agencies, which gives some people pause on the security of the devices themselves. So this is a hardware security module and a bunch of things that it's used for. They come in many flavors and sizes, from a rack-mounted server to a USB device. This is a little more information about the Cryptech project. It was started at the instigation of a few folks who are very active in the IETF security community. The idea is to build components that could be put together for various kinds of applications, for example, DNSSEC. And we have fair assurances of the project being open. We have a core team that's spread around the world: Sweden, Russia, United States, Germany, etc. And we have open development with signed commits to the Git repositories that we use. We make our stuff as available as we can. We use a 3-clause BSD license for all the software in the FPGA code. We use Creative Commons for all the documents, which includes PCB layouts and bills of materials. And our intent is to make this available and to make it as easy to use for others as possible. This is a picture of the last alpha board that we had. The new ones that we had, because of this grant, are so new that we don't have pictures of them yet. This is a list of accomplishments we've done. Reported on this last year. All of our stuff is published, hardware and software. We use it for RSA signing. We do 80 signatures a second in our device, and with 2048 RSA keys. We also do hash-based signatures, and we've had an external security code audit, which tells us that our device is really secure. This is what we did in 2020, 2021 with the ARIN grants in the previous 2 years. We had a lot of disruption this year because of COVID. So kind of everything we tried to do was disrupted. Our personal lives, where a lot of us spend the time on this, were impacted, and a lot of impact happened in the supply chain. So as we tried to build a new version of this board, we had interruptions and all kinds of things that were supposed to be delivered. But we managed to move our board designs to KiCad, which is an open source tool. We completed our new board design. We have 6 new boards fabricated that we are currently in the process of testing and debugging, and we're testing our new components for this year. This is where we're going next, we think. A more detailed or more extensive elaboration on our current design, largely putting new things into the FPGAs we have on the device. Using a core for the master control unit, re-architecting the DMA engine, and integrating a small RISC-V into the FPGA master key memory. So thanks to ARIN. The grants that you gave us last year and this year have helped us move this along. I don't think we would have our prototype boards if we had not received the grant from you in this year. So thank you very much. And these are the other people who have supported Cryptech in the past, and we thank all of them as well. Thanks.
Finally today, let me introduce Keith Mitchell from DNSOARC with their grant project regarding RPKI origin validation visibility for Check My DNS.
Hello, my name is Keith Mitchell. I'm president of DNSOARC, and I'm here today to tell you about the ARIN community grant that we received last year. This was to add RPKI origin validation visibility to our existing Check My DNS tool. For those of you who are not familiar with OARC, we're a nonprofit membership organization like ARIN, and we're here to make the internet's domain name infrastructure work better. We do this through a number of activities. We encourage cooperation between researchers and operators. We develop open source tools. We do various types of community building and information sharing. One of the main vehicles for doing that is workshops, which we run 2 or 3 times a year. We have a very diverse community of members, nearly 120 of them. You can see that there are a wide range of sizes and different types of interest in the DNS. Software development projects that we do, I mentioned that we develop open source software. In 2019, ARIN was good enough to give us a grant which provided general support for the development and maintenance of many of our open source DNS tools. Last year's grant was, as I say, to add this RPKI origin validation visibility to our existing Check My DNS tool. What does that do? Whenever you're using the internet, you're using a DNS resolver that converts your name into an IP address. It's very important that that's trustworthy. And essentially what this tool does is the resolver, which could be at your ISP, it could be somewhere in the cloud, it could be on your local network. Effectively what it's doing is checking whether that is RPKI validated or not. I expect many of you are familiar with ARIN's RPKI efforts, but there's a reference for those of you who want more information. Check My DNS is a tool that we've been running for a number of years. Over OARC's history, we've developed many such tools. And what this is a kind of framework that all these tests can be incorporated into. The way that it works is that the end user clicks on a link in their browser, and then traffic goes between the scripts in the browser and the custom name server that we run. These results are then visible in the user's browser in a graphical summary, and where the test results are of interest, you can drill down to find a bit more detail. The tests check things like, is DNS working over UDP or TCP transports, or appropriate source port randomization for security supported, what protocol features are or not supported. And in this development, we also added the idea of an achievements badge, and the first achievements badges that you can earn on our tester or for IPKI, whether it's V4 or V6. If you have a completely successful test, then this is what the results look like. There is more information if the tests are not successful, and you can click on various parts of the screen to drill down with more information. And you can see the RPKI achievements badges have been scored on this particular test. Why do all this? Why is it so important to do RPKI validation? Basically, the internet needs both secure routing and stable DNS to operate robustly, and RPKI is an important part of this. And it's one of these places where ARIN and OARC, our public benefit missions, have common cause. We already had a command line based prototype to support this validation check. And the idea was to make this visible in a user-friendly way and use that as a means to raise awareness of the value of RPKI. And also, it's a tool that can help with debugging and testing of infrastructure. One of the things that support this, it isn't just the tester at our end, there are also ROA beacons. And the RPKI tester needs these in order to work. These were first brought up on an ad hoc basis by various parties, but I'm pleased to say that the RIPE NCC now support these in support of our tool. And it would be great if other organizations could also operate ROA beacons to increase the coverage. So that's pretty much all I have to say. If you want more information about OARC software development projects in general, you can find it there, and you can find out how to fund our projects and where our GitHub projects and mailing lists are. There's also a blog post there, which is a bit more background on this project. And the thing I should make clear is I didn't do this development work. That was done by our software engineer, Jerry Lindstrom. And any errors in this presentation, Jerry's on vacation at the moment, so the errors are mine, not his. However, when he gets back in a week or two, he'll certainly be very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time. I hope that was of interest.
Thank you so much to our grant recipients. And I know that there were several questions for the For those recipients, if you would like to email us, we can get those questions onto them. Not all of them were available to be here today. And because we are running a little bit ahead of schedule, I will, oh, I'm sorry, did I see a hand? No, we're good. Okay. Because we're running a little ahead of schedule, we are going to switch it up a little bit and move something up from this afternoon. And so at this time, it's my pleasure to welcome Lisa, the Director of Registration Services for our Registration Services update. Lisa, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lydell, the Director of Registration Services, and I just want to do a little bit of updates on what the Registration Services group has been doing. Next slide, please. So we're just going to outline here a little bit about our customer base and the organizations currently served by ARIN. Currently, looks like we have about 19% of our customers are our Registration Services Plan customers or our RSP customers. And then we have about 42%, which are our end user customers. And then we have another almost 39%, which are customers who are not currently under contract with ARIN or our legacy customers. Next slide, please. This just shows a little bit on how the standard and the legacy registration services agreements have been increasing, while the organizations or the IPv4 addresses not covered under a registration services agreement are decreasing. We seem to have a steady flow with that, and we like to see that keep going up. Next slide, please. And our IPv4 waiting list, we've continued to see some steady flow in that over the past several quarters. We do issue at the end of each quarter for folks on the waiting list, and we have been depleting most of everything, all the requests on the waiting list, but that doesn't mean we'll continue to be able to do that going forward, but just wanted to give you a little update on where we are with that now. Next slide, please. And these are our reserve pools from section 4.4 and 4.10. That's our critical infrastructure 4.4 and transition space for transition services under NRPM section 4.10. We're in good shape there still. Next slide, please. And this is our IPv6 profile for our registration services plans. So we see that we have, for our customers under, or for IPv6, we have a bunch, like 39.5% of our RSP customers have only IPv4, but that doesn't mean they don't have IPv6 from an upstream provider. And I think you'll see that in one of the future slides. And then we have some customers that have only IPv6 from ARIN, and that's about 8.5%. And then almost 52% have both IPv4 and IPv6 from ARIN. Next slide, please. This is the networks, the IPv6 networks that are created via SWIP by year. And this is where we see some of those customers that did not have IPv6, they only had IPv4. We would anticipate that a lot of those are included in these SWIPs from the ISPs. And so far this year, there's almost 97,000 IPv6 reassignments from customers. And we note that one of the very large ISPs has probably done about 80% of these reassignments this year. So that kind of shows that they're really getting their customers onto IPv6 connectivities. Next slide, please. And this is the transfers that we've received by quarter. And we can just see that's kind of a steady flow as well. The IPv to M&A transfers, the market transfers for IPv, I'm sorry, for 8.3. And then the 8.4 inter RIR transfers are listed here as well. Next slide, please. And this is the number of /24s transferred by quarter. The numbers that are kind of hanging off at the top to themselves, those are the recipient numbers. The bar charts are kind of a little tiny to see where they actually are, but that's what the number 24s that we've received in. Next slide, please. And we do coordinate our statistics with the other 5 or with the other RIRs. So all 5 do post our statistics on the NRO website, and we'd like to invite you to go out there and take a look at those. And next slide, please. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, at this time, thank you so much. We are looking for questions. Reminder to put your questions in the chat. I'm sorry, let's rewind, shall I? Reminder to put your questions in the Q&A boxes and include your affiliation. If there are any questions for Ms. Lydell. It doesn't look like there is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Actually, we are not going to the NRO presentation. We're going to jump back to getting ready for our break. And I'll just give our coordinator a second. No worries. I could tell a joke. You want a joke?
It's singing. Remember, we have to sing during.
No, I don't. I mean, I do sing, but I don't sing. But Mr. Anderson.
Oh, I'm not singing.
Do
last time I sung, there was a riot in the community.
But wait, do you know what it's called when when a cow is missing 2 legs?
I don't know what is a cow missing 2 legs.
Lean beef. You're welcome.
Hey, look,
So
the
stick
break-
around for the break.
Slides are up.
Stick around for the break, everybody. We've got a 10-minute stretch with ARIN, and then you'll have free time until we return. We will return for the policy block at 1:30. So you've got an extended break by a few minutes today. Thank you so much. And we will move on to our break from here. Have a great afternoon. Get some lunch or some snacks, and we'll see you back in just a little bit.
for day 2 of our stretch session. I'm ARIN. I'll be guiding us through another 10-minute stretch today. Hope you're enjoying the meeting so far and having a great time. So we'll dive right in. Again, if this is your first stretch session with me, find a comfortable seat. You can do this seated in a chair. You can do a lot of this standing up if you feel like you need to get up and stretch, or you can also find a seat on the ground if that's more comfortable for you. So take a moment, get comfortable. You can do this in whatever you're wearing right now. And we'll just start by connecting with our breath, placing your hands down on your knees or just above them, relaxing the shoulders away from the neck, creating some space, sitting up with a nice straight spine. Just allow that breath to flow. Breathing naturally at first. You can close your eyes if you wish. And with each breath, just slowly beginning to deepen the breath, slowing down the inhale as you feel the body and the belly expand with oxygen. And exhaling slowly through the mouth. Feel the body coming back in towards itself, relaxing and releasing anything that needs to be let go of. Repeating this at your own pace, a couple of breaths. Beginning to just quiet the mind and dropping into the present moment. And whenever you're ready, we'll open those eyes. And we're going to turn our head over to the right side and just taking that right hand just along the cheek or the chin and just gently beginning to guide that head to the side as far as you can. You can also place that opposite hand on your shoulder and again, just creating space through the side neck, through the face. Relaxing the neck muscles, releasing them. Turning as far behind you as is comfortable. And slowly coming through center. We'll repeat that on the opposite side, just gently holding onto that cheek or the chin and guiding it as you turn the head as far as is comfortable. Deep breath in and exhale, releasing. We'll drop that chin down to the chest and just rock the head slowly and gently side to side. And coming back through center. We'll bring that left arm right across the body and using that opposite arm, just kind of creating a little bit of a T shape here, stretching that shoulder muscle. Continuing to sit up nice and tall, feeling a lengthening along that shoulder and the upper arm, bicep. Keeping both hands kind of open here, active, engaging the muscles. And releasing. And preparing for that opposite side now, creating a T with those arms, active fingers, a nice stretch along that right shoulder. Deep breath in and release. We're going to bring both hands behind our back and clasp them together. So your hands are going to look like this in a fist behind your back. We're going to take both hands over as far to the right as you can manage. So if you're really tight along the muscles on your neck and shoulders, you might really just be sitting with your hands right behind your back, and that's okay. But starting to guide those hands slowly, taking time over to the right side of the body. Now your fists might be kind of next to your torso here, and you're really going to feel a pull along that left arm. It should be a nice stretch here wherever you are, wherever is comfortable for you. If you want to add a little bit into it, you can start dropping that right ear over to the right shoulder. You're going to feel an even deeper stretch as you do so. So really feeling a lot of traction along that left shoulder, left neck, the upper back. 2 breaths. And releasing. And we're going to bring those hands over as far as we can to the left side now. So again, take your time here. Just let your body adjust, not rushing into it. And with each breath, you might find that you can go a little bit further. And if you'd like to add a little bit more here, you can drop that ear over to the shoulder. Couple of breaths. And coming back through center, releasing those arms. And from here, we're going to take both arms up towards the ceiling. You're going to hold on to that right wrist with the left hand and start opening up that side body. So just kind of guiding that right arm up and over. You don't want to collapse in on yourself here. So really maintaining a straight spine and open chest and heart as you open up the side body. With each breath, just deepening that stretch a little bit more. And inhaling back through center, drop the arms, relaxing them down just for a moment. And we'll swoop them back up to the sky, this time holding onto that opposite wrist, your left hand, your left wrist with the right hand. Deep breath in, straight spine, and then opening up that left side body. And returning back through center, relax the arms down. And you can shake those shoulders out, maybe just kind of moving them up, back and down, shrugging the shoulders a bit, allowing the neck to drop side to side. We've done a lot of work on the neck and shoulders here. From here, we're going to start to take our twist, allowing that spine to get a nice adjustment. So holding on to the opposite knee, you can choose whichever side you'd like. I'm going to start with my right side. So bringing that left hand over to my right knee, beginning to turn. Maintaining an open spine and open chest as I hold on to the back of the chair and gaze behind me. And coming back through center, then opening up to that opposite side. And returning back through center. From here, I'm going to scooch to the edge of my chair and start to straighten out my legs. Depending on where you are, this may be possible. If you'd like to move to the floor, that's also a good option. We're going to do sort of a seated forward fold here, but in our chair. So making sure you have a nice firm base and you're stable on the chair. There's no wheels on it. If it does have wheels, make sure you're up against a wall or maybe move down to the floor. We're going to start to bend from our hips. So kind of bending forward from the hips, not arching the back too much. You want to really protect that spine, maybe placing your hands on your hips to help guide, just bending forward. And you'll feel a stopping point. You're going to start to feel those muscles in your legs really releasing. You can bend your knees a little bit if that helps you get a little bit deeper into the stretch. As you start bending forward, drop the head down into sort of a seated forward fold. Bringing that forehead down to the knees. You can relax your hands down on the floor or some part of your legs. And just release, breathing into this deep forward fold. Loosening up the tight hamstrings and calf muscles in the legs. And very slowly, we'll begin to rise up, one vertebrae at a time to prevent any dizziness. And bring those knees back in, adjusting yourself. And we'll hold on to those knees now for a seated cat and cow. So for seated cat and cow, placing those knees down on the ground, hold on to those feet down on the ground, hold on to those knees for support. As we breathe in, we're going to push our belly out. and kind of flex the back. So creating that kind of reverse C with the back and gazing up towards the sky. As you exhale, we're going to round the spine, tuck the chin, really bringing that belly in, creating a C shape again with that front body. And inhaling forward, gaze up. And exhale, round the spine, tuck the chin. And coming back through neutral. I'm going to sweep our arms back up to the sky. And exhale, dropping just that left arm. We're going to bend at the elbow. Right here. And kind of placing the back of the hand right along the shoulder blades. You're going to bring that right arm up and over, bending at the elbow. Now your hands may not touch, and that's perfectly okay. But you're going to feel a great stretch along that upper back, along the shoulders, and maybe, just maybe, your fingertips will find one another, and maybe not. Breathing in for a moment. Gently releasing those arms. And bringing both arms back up to the sky. We're going to bend that left elbow this time and bring that right elbow bent behind us. Once again, I'll turn around so you can see my hands are trying to find one another. But that's not the goal. You're really just stretching those upper shoulder muscles, upper back. Also your biceps. And relax the arms down. Place your hands on your knees, maybe rubbing your thighs a couple times. And taking a couple more deep breaths in as we close our stretching session for the day. One more deep breath in as we bring our arms up overhead. Exhale, hands coming to center. Thanks for joining me for day 2 of stretching. Back for day 2 of our
Welcome back, everyone. I will get us on to our policy block in just a minute, but first, hey, Melissa, are you there?
Yes, Beverly, I am.
I heard you had something to ask me.
I did. What did the cucumber say to the pickle?
Oh, I don't know.
You mean a great deal to me.
Hey, Melissa.
Yes, Beverly.
What do you call a pig with 3 eyes?
I don't know, Beverly. What do you call a pig with 3 eyes?
Pig.
Wow, wow.
And on that amazing note, I will turn it over to Paul Anderson, our board chair, and start our policy block for this afternoon.
Hi there. So hopefully you can hear me. I'm having a small technical difficulty, which I will resolve
We can.
Shortly. But for the next hour, we're going to go over the last part of our policy block, 3 policies. So just like yesterday, with the 2 types of policies, recommended draft policy and draft policy. These are all draft policies much earlier in the circuit. A reminder that please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A or raise your hand. You can do that even while the presentation is going so that we can, when we open up the queues, we have action. But first, we're going to ask the Advisory Council Member Shepherd, Alyssa Quinn, to give the presentation on draft policy 2021-4, clarifications to sections 8.3, 8.4, and 8.5.6. Alyssa, over to you.
Yes, hello. Next slide, please. Okay, so some history on this one. We first got the proposal in mid-August. We forwarded to draft policy about a week later, and there's been a little bit of discussion on the PPML. I'll go over that in a bit. And this is this proposal's first appearance at an ARIN meeting. Next slide, please. So the problem statement is that the language in sections 8.3 and 8.4 are not clear with respect to what we mean by number resources. Is it just IPv4 addresses? Is it ASNs? Do you need to transfer ASNs with v4 addresses? So I guess a little bit of confusion there based on the language. And then some similar cleanup there in section 8.5.7. And then there's a comment from the author of the proposal that the changes in this proposal were originally included in an editorial policy proposal that went for a staff and legal review. And the staff and legal review came back with the advice that, well, actually, some elements of this are not editorial in nature, and it could actually have some material changes. So just out of an abundance of caution, which is a term that is used a lot lately, we have broken this out into its separate one that is not editorial in nature. Next slide, please. So here's the policy statement. And as you can see, it's just a little bit of wording changes. So in this first one, we say IPv4 number resources and ASNs may be transferred according to the following conditions. And the proposal updates that to say IPv4 addresses and or ASN resources. And the object there is to make it clear that you don't have to transfer an ASN with along with IPv4. Similar situation with the next bit of text. So taking it from just saying IPv4 address resources to saying IPv4 address and or ASN resources. So pulling that ASN element through to make it clear that that's also being referred to in the NRPM as well. Next slide, please. So similar situation all the way through this text, taking it from saying IPv4 number resources and ASNs to and or ASN resources, all throughout this text. Next slide, please. And then finally, this one's even more of a basic change. So the current text of NRPM says in the second line here, the IPv4 address blocks in order to receive additional space. So the updated proposed text would say additional IPv4 space to make it clear that we're referring to IPv4. Just to, it's kind of self-evident, but to make it crystal clear. And so the conversation so far on PPML was, well, is this really material in nature? It still seems kind of editorial to me. Sure, that's a fair critique, but it was, advice given to us through a staff and legal, and it certainly could be interpreted in a material manner. And some folks commented to that effect on PPML as well. So here's an example of a comment that in the original text, it's unclear whether AS numbers are intended to be independently transferable. And the new text, it would be clear that they are independently transferable. So that is material in nature, not just cleaning up some difficult word construction. Next slide, please. So my questions for the community today are, is this a reasonable change? Are you supportive of this proposal moving forward? And is there better language that we could use? And I think I'll just leave it open on that question slide for you, Paul.
That's perfect. Yes. So just a reminder, because this is a very early proposal, as Alyssa said, two types of feedback are very useful, especially with our Q&A, is that either you're in favor of the proposal, or even if you don't like the proposal, are you at least in favor of this being a problem that the AEC should solve? They're happy to come up with different approaches, but it's just useful that they know that this should even be something they're working on. And for those new, we try and remember acronyms. So NRPM was mentioned. That's just the short form that all of us use for Number Resource Policy Manual, for those that might not be familiar. But with that attempted diatribe, hopefully there are some Q&As coming in, or those that would like to raise their hand. So far, none, but we would like to solicit some feedback right now on what people think. So the queues, either in Q&A or raise hand are open. Please, again, remember to put your affiliation in before with the, if you are typing a comment. And with that, we'll go to our first comment.
All right, our first comment is from David Farmer with the University of Minnesota. Support is written. This language is good enough, in my opinion.
Thank you, Dave, for that comment of support.
And we have a hand raised from Kevin Bloomberg. Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and let you unmute yourself.
Yes. Kevin from The Wire, please. Unless he's speaking in a different capacity. Kevin, go ahead. Kevin, I assume it must be having some technical difficulties. Maybe we'll go to our next comment while Kevin sorts it out.
Okay, our next comment is from Joe Pace with American Honda Motor Company. I support the proposed change as written. They add clarity.
Thank you. Just a reminder to those, the comments in chat cannot be put on the record. So please, if you do that, but I see Joe would like to speak as well. Let's go to our next comment though first.
Okay, we have Henry Clay Dean with Mediacom Communications, AS 30036, support is written.
Okay, let's try Kevin Bloomberg again. Kevin,
can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Perfect,
ahead,
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. So I support the policy. I have one question. Does this create a situation where a resource holder, if they transfer an AS number, becomes ineligible for IPv4 space as an example, or are they treated independently in that regard?
So do you want to field that or ask one of the how staff are handling it right now?
Yeah, I would defer to staff.
Mr. Sweeting,
to
John
give the
Sweeting.
interpretation.
They're handled independently. The V4 doesn't have any effect on the ASN.
There you go. Kevin, does that address your question?
It's only a question of, will this text change that if it's now and an or? Are they commingling in regards to that, or does that need additional clarification that they are independent of one another?
Yeah, for better clarification, I'd have to go look at it again, but we don't mix and match the justifications for ASN transfer and IPv4 transfer.
So Kevin, do you think this is a problem though that should be being solved, or?
Can we go back to the language? Can we look at the language? So where was the question you had, Kevin?
It's about the by commingling it, you know, and an or together now. If an AS is transferred, is staff going to put them together because they're now put together within this text? That's it's as long as that's not the situation, because I think that would be an unintended consequence. I support this because it is cleaning things up. I just want to make sure that they are treated independently of one another when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think by putting the and or in there, it allows it to be treated independently because it's an and or rather than and. It is a clarification to do exactly what you're asking.
Yeah, I think the previous language, like the current language, Kevin, had that potential effect that they would be treated together, that they'd be commingled, but adding the or gets us away from that.
Thank you. Then I support as written.
Thank you. Joe Provo, do you want to unmute next? I know you have a technical problem that you can't put Q&A. Do you want to just put your comment in here on the record?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Joe Provo, ARIN AC, Google is one of the co-authors on the original proposal. I believe it definitely needs to continue work as it was directly raised from members of the community, and I support as written currently.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, let's go. We have about, looks like 5 comments, so let's clear those in. If you, as we're coming somewhat up to our time, I'd ask if you do have comments you'd like to raise, please raise your hand and or put in a Q&A. So I'll ask the staff to read all our comments.
Gary Geeson with eGate Networks and ARIN AC. Support change is written. It adds clarity and we don't need to go overboard with the language as it's much better than it was.
Thank you. Next comment.
Our next comment is from Gus Reese, Cogent Communications. I agree, this is a reasonable change and support the policy as written.
Okay. And our last 2 comments.
Our next comment is from Donnie Lewis with the Obsidian Group. The language is clear, support is written. And our final comment is from Robert Seastrom, ARIN AC, Clue Trust, Capital One, support is written.
Okay. That ends our queue. So if you have a comment, could you please either raise your hand or start typing furiously, even just send us a small Q&A saying you are typing, but we'll give it a couple seconds here. Obviously, if there's anybody who does not think this is a good problem to be working on, now would be a good time to raise it. But as we do wait and we try and fill the video stream, I will remind that this is the more formal way to put your views on the record. For those newer to the process, please always feel free to reach out to the AC Shepherds. You'll find their email addresses on the ARIN website, and you can always provide feedback to them directly by email. They're always happy to take it. And of course, if you want to put it more on the public record, there is the ARIN PPML mailing list that you can join and put that feedback in. Seeing no hands up though, and seeing no Q&A, I think we will now consider the queues closed. This input has been provided to Alyssa. Thank you, Alyssa, for the presentation. And we will keep on moving. And I will ask Joe Provo, who we heard, and now we shall see, who will be doing the next draft policy, 2021-5, which is an update to the ISP and user references for the 2022 fee schedule. So Joe, please take it away. Come on.
Hello. pending.
Seem to have lost your video. There's your, yes, apparently his video has been muted. So if we can unmute his video.
All right, start my video. Thank you very much, host.
Thank you. Now will vanish.
All righty, bye, Paul. Hi, this is, I'm Joe Provo. I'm presenting this on behalf of myself and my colleague Allison Wood on the Advisory Council. We're the shepherds for this policy 2021-5. It's very similar to the last proposal that you heard. It's an early draft. If you want to go to the next slide, please, we'll have the history. It just came in September. We, as shepherds, haven't really taken the editorial pen to this yet. We wanted to get all the feedback from the ARIN meeting. Next slide, please. It's a pretty direct problem statement we have here, that we are attempting to get ahead of the fee changes that have been decided by the board. Since there is no longer going to be a differentiation between end users and ISPs, it would behoove us to look over the policy to see where in the NRPM we have such differentiation if it needed to be changed. So next slide, please. Kind of restating exactly what I said in the formal language of the policy statement. Next slide, please. We're going to compare each section individually. I'm not going to regurgitate what is on the slides here or in your electronic version of your handout that you would have as PDF on the website. But it's pretty straightforward in terms of addressing the nomenclature, substituting organizations here where we see ISPs. Next slide, please. And similar sort of normalization of trending towards a more generic term of organizations rather than ticking off specific types of organizations. Next slide, please. You'll see the same kind of text change here in 610.1. So thank you. There was a suggestion bundled in with the proposal that resource holder might be better than organization for the new text. I'm inclined personally as a shepherd to kind of lean in that way to help normalize, as we have also had changes similar in the earlier proposal to speak about resources versus specific types when we can abstract it. The PPML feedback, again, this is a new proposal, new-ish in the ARIN timeline of things. So there was a little bit of confusion about whether this was actually implementing the fee change. No, that's an RSA topic. That is not an NRPM topic. This is merely language adjustments to get ahead of the change so that we're not doing this next year and catching up to the change. There was one cogent suggestion to adjust the language to include assignments. And it might be that some of these suggestions might be a follow-on. The assignment might be a direct change for this one that would be useful. I think perhaps maybe an editorial broad brush about organization versus resource holder might apply in more sections that may not be relevant to this change, but that's open for discussion. Next slide, please. And that's where we are, open for discussion.
Thank you, Joe. All right. Again, a new policy proposal, and as Joe points out, I think on this one, just to make clarity, there is fees are not in policy, but fees can use definitions by that. So it is true there's been a change in that regard. So this is not to implement that fee proposal, it's simply to clean up the language since there was some distinctions in the NRPM, and now they'll just be focused solely on just policy. With that, we'll throw open the queues for any comments, questions, or thoughts on this proposal. If this is a good idea to be working on, is always useful. I apologize, I can hear my dog in the background, so it must be now officially a Zoom meeting. A pet or small child has interrupted the meeting. We will give it a bit of time. Again, you can give it 30 seconds and then we'll assume there's no feedback. But as a reminder, you can reach out to Joe, you can reach out to the PPML if you want to give further feedback. Well, this is certainly going to bring us back on time if there's no feedback, but not that we shouldn't have feedback. Oh, I see something has popped up. Joe Pace from the America Honda Motor Company is supportive as written. Thank you, Joe Pace. Any other comments? Okay, so as to save you from any more dad jokes, we will close the queues. And I thank Joe for that excellent presentation. Hopefully some feedback will be generated either offline or versus, but thanks very much, Joe.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So we'll go into our last proposal, 2120-6, which is removing the circuit requirement. And we have Andrew Dahl to present. Andrew, feel free to appear and take it away.
Hey, Paul, thank you. Everybody see and hear me okay?
We can see and hear you, yes.
Excellent. All right. So this presentation is for 2021-6, remove circuit requirement. Myself and Matthew Wilder are the shepherds on this policy. Next slide, please. Here is the current history of it. So it's quite young in its draft stage. We received it on September 13th and promoted it at the next AC meeting, and it has not yet been presented at an ARIN meeting. This is the one you've all been talking about on PPML. So next slide, please. All right, the policy problem statement says, current ARIN policy prevents the use of leased out addresses as evidence of utilization. And the author notes, this concise change informs staff that neither virtual nor physical circuits are required for a technical connection between the LIR and customer. Next slide, please. This is the policy statement. In this slide, I have highlighted and underlined in red the changes that we're doing. It basically changes the definition of an LIR with regard to network services. Instead, just says users of the network. Next slide, please. All right, so what are the policy impacts of this? If this change to the definition of LIR is implemented, what would be the impacts for this? So first of all, let's look at the wait list. An organization would be able to make a request for number resources via the wait list, regardless of if the organization provided network services to its customers. So this means pretty much any organization in the world would be able to come to the wait list and ask for number resources for someone else. IPv4 transfers. The same would be true for organizations who request IPv4 transfers. They would be able to ask for address space and note it as utilized, even if they provide no network services to any of their customers. Next slide, please. IPv6, the same thing would be true of IPv6 allocations. An organization would be able to come to ARIN and ask for IPv6 number resources, regardless of if it provided those network services to its customers. They would only be providing number resources. And the same thing would also be true for ASNs. Next slide, please. This policy draft as it has not been modified by the shepherds at this point. We note that basically this changes the definition of section 2.4, the local internet registry. However, other sections of the NRPM also are used in defining the nature of an LIR, and just changing the definition section will likely create inconsistencies with other parts of the NRPM. And here I specifically note 3 sections that would likely also need to be updated for clarity to understand what happens in these situations. For example, section 1.2, organizations are currently required to have distribute resources to organizations that have a technical need for them. Section 1.4, the fundamental purpose of number stewardship is to distribute unique number resources to building and operating networks. And 8.5 under transfer section, ARIN allocates and assigns number resources be a transfer solely for purposes for use in an operational network. Next slide, please. This is the PPML summary as noted so far. There's many more messages were posted. However, most of them seem to be composed of basically about 20 or so authors or contributors on the list. We noted 3 contributors made statements of support of the draft, 12 opposed, and 5 did not specifically state their support or opposition. Next slide, please. These were a few highlights from PPML. In support, conservation will be provided by the market as it places addresses in their best and highest need. Allowing leasing encourages accurate usage and who is an RDAP. A lack of clarity on leasing encourages registry shopping, and limits on leasing cause increases in lease pricing. Statements not in support. Explicit leasing will create additional route table entries. IPv4 resources should remain under control of ARIN, not leasing companies. Additional leasing encourages speculation by non-network operators and increases address prices. And encouraging existing holders of encourages existing holders of excess address space to lease them rather than to transfer them. And here's a last slide, which is our questions of the day. Do you support the current draft as written? If you don't support as written, are there changes that you would recommend to support a draft policy? And do you support the concepts of the draft and would like the AC to continue working on this? Or do you think this is something that should be abandoned? So those are the questions for today, and look forward to your conversation.
Well, we have no time for conversation, so unfortunately, we're just going to have to close it right there.
We just got to
I
go
hear
to
nobody would like to comment on this. We, of course, continue our jokes here. No, with all seriousness, the queues are now open. I suspect we will hear a little bit of feedback on this one. So please, Q&A, remember to put your name and affiliation. I do encourage more use of the raising hand because it is good to be able to get interactive if you are making more than a support or against. But with that, we have 2 comments. So the first one is from David Farmer of the University of Minnesota. While I support allowing the leasing of IPv4 addresses and obtaining IPv4 addresses from the transfer market, I do not support the policy as written. My primary objection is that this policy change would apply to both IPv4 and IPv6, which I do not believe to be appropriate. So Dave, thank you for that. I assume you would then take that if V6 was dropped. We'll take our next comment, please.
Tom Coffeen with Hexabuild, support is written.
Okay. I do see one person has put a comment, I think, in chat. So I would ask that you please either transfer that to the Q&A so we can put it on, or raise your hand, please. I would hate to see that not get put in. We will continue to take feedback here. I may have lost the over-under because I thought there'd be a little more. As this is, as they say, has been a hot topic on PPML, or a spicy topic. Chris Woodfield, Twitter does not support as written. I do not believe that it is in the community's interest to allow non-operators to hold resources unrelated to providing network services. And thank you to that person for moving to the Q&A. Let's get the next one.
Mike Burns with IP Trading. I proposed a change designed to shield the waiting list and would support with that change.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Do you have any comments on that, Andrew, on that change, or is that just something still being considered?
We haven't taken the pen to this draft at this point, so we would certainly incorporate that in other feedback in the next version.
Okay, just a reminder to those posting questions to please put their affiliation. We have one in there that does not have an affiliation, so I would appreciate that. Gus Rees, Cogent Communications, I support the concepts in the draft and would support further AC and PPML discussion. Okay, I don't think anyone's put their hand up. We have one comment. I'm just waiting for their affiliation to hopefully come in. Thank you. Tina Morris of Amazon Web Services says do not support. Oh, some comments coming in. Can we get the next comment, please?
Yes, Connor Jenick with 10110770 Manitoba, support is written.
Okay. And our next one?
We have Gus Reese with Cogent Communications. I support the concepts in the draft and would support further AC and PPML discussion.
Okay, let's go to, we have a hand up, please. Could we unmute that mic, or did it go away?
All right, Mercia, you can unmute yourself now.
Full name and affiliation, please, and whether you're in favor or against.
Merce Arnold, the Obsidian Group Incorporated, support continued discussion.
Okay, thank you. Let's take our next written comment then, please.
All right, Rob Seastrom, ARIN AC, Clue Trust, Capital One, speaking on my own behalf, opposes written.
Okay, Joe Pace from the American Honda Motor Corporation says I do not support. While we have one more comment, I'd ask those that would like to, we're not in a time rush, but I would ask if you do have feedback to start putting in so we can just make sure we allocate time correctly. And obviously, if you have any reasons why you are for or against, it would be great if you could raise your hand so we can get your comments live. And if Shepard has any questions, he can ask at that point. Having said that, we'll give another 30 seconds for comments to come in. Let's take our next comment.
All right, Donnie Lewis with the Obsidian Group, support concepts, but more work.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Citizens support. I believe this will cause confusion. I do not support as written.
Okay. Let's take what is currently our last comment. And again, please hurry. We will be closing in the next 15 seconds.
All right, Phoebe Rouge with the US government, but speaking only for myself, support further discussion of downstream impacts on market.
Okay, I'm going to go a little out of order and probably ask one of the Johns, Kern or Sweden, take this. The question is, how much underground leasing happens at ARIN and who does not know about? And that's from Jonathan Stewart at less.net. I guess I'd preface it by saying you don't know what you don't know, but I don't know if John Kern would like to address a bit of just maybe what the organization has seen in general of that.
I can
John.
Okay. I just insert myself here, Paul, and let you know we have no idea. We know that it's out there, we know that it's happening, but we have absolutely, and there's probably different flavors of it. There's the ones where it's being leased and it's actually being swept in who is, so it's actually showing up as the people that it's being leased to, and then there's the ones where there's probably no record of who is actually using that, and we really look to the operators community to stop that from happening and not be routing blocks that do not show up in who is. So there's very little that ARIN can do about those types of leasing.
Thanks, John Sweeting. Okay, we will close the queues and we will hear our last two comments, please. Can we have the next one, please?
Joe Provo, ARIN AC, Google, speaking for myself, opposes written and in principle.
The last word goes to Martin Hannigan of Deep Edge Realty, who says he supports further discussion. Okay, well, we thank you for all that input to this policy. Is there anything, Andrew, you wanted to add before we end off?
No, I'll just say thanks for the discussion today, and I look forward to continued discussion on PPML as we move forward with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. We're quite a bit ahead of schedule, but we still have some great content, so I'll turn it over to introduce our next speaker.
Sure, thank you so much. And I'm just giving our slides coordinator a second to jump ahead, and then we will get ready. Our next update is the NRO update, and that will be presented by Mr. John Curran, President and CEO. And I'll make sure that he is ready for us. You guys are just making me wait and have to have jokes, aren't you? No, I won't sing the jokes. We're not singing jokes. Does anybody
That's not
else?
fair.
Does anybody else follow whether or not it's a bones or a no bones day? I need to know. Was today a bones day? I feel like it would be a bones day.
Apparently it's a
The
bones day.
bones
That's what I'm
day,
hearing.
yay!
So I suspect that John must be having some technical difficulties because I noticed he didn't appear earlier, which
Correct. So we will, I was giving it a second, but at this point we're, let's see, I can be ready to move on and we will do the NRO NC update and we'll come back. And just give me a moment to get that up and running. If you want to tell a joke while I'm finding it, I'm just saying you could.
Well, John has appeared. John, are you okay if we just go with Louise and we'll come back to you?
Yes, any order is fine. Sorry about that. I had a network problem.
I assumed as much. So why don't we go with the NRO NC update because it's all queued up, and then we'll come back to John in a second.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Louis Lee. I'm one of the members of the NRO Number Council from the ARIN region. This is the ASO update for ARIN 48. We are the NRO Number Council made up of 15 members with 3 from each region. 2 are elected and 1 is appointed by the RIR boards. While the term of the office varies between regions, in the ARIN region, the term is 3 years for both elected and appointed members. We do our work as the Address Council in the ICANN Address Supporting Organization, as specified in an agreement between ICANN and the 5 RIRs. The main functions include advising the ICANN board on matters relating to IP and AS number policies, overseeing the global policy development process, appointing 2 ICANN board of directors, and appointing 1 member to the ICANN NomCall. In the ARIN region, the elected NRO members also serve as the IANA Numbering Services Review Committee. In short, we review the interactions between IANA and the RIRs and put on annual review about how well it has been going. From the ARIN region, we have Martin Hannigan, Kevin Bloomberg as chair, and myself. Of the 3 of us, Kevin is the one appointed by the ARIN board. My term is up at the end of this year. And now a short message about the NRO NC election. ARIN 48 and NANOG 83 attendees who are not voting contacts for eligible ARIN members may vote from November 1st through the 12th if they have registered for the meetings before October 28th. All voting contacts for eligible ARIN members may vote online from November 4th through the 12th. And since our last ARIN meeting, the notable update to the list of the ASOAC members is that James Kennedy replaced Felice Yomas when she stepped down at the end of May. The 5 of us are designated to keep an eye on the regional policy mailing list to call out any policy proposals that has potential to be global policy. These 5 are the PPFD, the Policy Proposal Facilitator Team. The person designated from the ARIN region this year is Martin Hannigan. There was not a policy proposal this year that became a proposal for global policy. We have an annual face-to-face meeting normally. This year it's been postponed, but our mailing lists are open to the public, and so are our monthly teleconferences. They are normally held in the first Wednesday of each month, and the link is posted shortly before the meeting. This year, we appointed Alan Barrett to serve a 3-year term on the ICANN board. This is the board seat previously occupied by Ron Da Silva. Since Akanori-san's term ends at the end of next year, we have begun taking nominations for appointments to his seat. The nominations will close in a month, and we expect to complete the selection process in April and announce our selection. Please let us know if you know somebody who might be well suited to serve on the ICANN board. This is the list of RIR meetings that have happened in about the last 6 months. This month, LACNIC 36 was held mostly online with 2 days as hybrid meeting in Montevideo, Uruguay. And here's the list of the RIR meetings for the next 6 months. Thank you very much. I'll be here to take any questions.
And Louis is actually here if anybody has any further questions for him. I checked on that, and we will, oops, pass that.
Oh, now we know somebody's YouTube history.
Yeah, it's all ARIN, so I'm not sure that's. All right, at this time, we are now going to
No, we're not. I had a comment. Sorry, that's why I appeared magically.
Oh, hi.
Hi there. Sorry, yes, I guess you just haven't presented one. I just thought I would, on the last presentation, think it would be appropriate to take a moment, as Louis very quietly and mentioned he is ending his term, but what he failed to mention is he's ending an 18-year run, and he has served your community for many, many years on that. And I just think that it would be, I'd like to take the moment to ask the community to thank Louis for many, many years of service. It's a very thankless job. The ASOAC is very important, but yeah, so I just thought I would add those words and thank you, Louis, for all many years. Like I said, it's been so long, I can't think of a time without you. So I know the ASOAC, it's a loss to lose you, but I appreciate all your service and thank you for that. And I'll turn over to John if he has any further words. So.
No, I'd also like to thank Louis. It has been an incredible run, and truly, when I think of the ASOAC, I think of Louis. I'm going to have to get used to the fact that it can function without him in the lead, and just incredible run, Louis.
Or without
I'd like
his
to give
hat.
the
Or without his
NRO
hat.
update. And so this is the number resource organization. It's the coordination function among the 5 RIRs. The executives in charge of each of the RIRs gets together, and we use the NRO as a sort of unincorporated coordinating entity to make sure that we work on one registry that's appropriately coordinated. So next slide. The NRO is a project of an MOU signed in October 2003, and it coordinates the RIR system and joint RIR activities. We promote the multi-stakeholder bottom-up policy development model, and we fulfill the role of ICANN ASO. The ASO is, the Address Supporting Organization, is actually defined in ICANN's bylaws, and it indicates that the NRO shall serve as the ASO. Our NRO Number Council serves as the ASOAC, as you just heard. So let me talk a little bit more about what the NRO does aside from the global policy aspect, the operational coordination. Next slide. The executive committee, the NRO EC, is made up of the executives of the 5 RIRs. So that's Hans-Peter Holden, Oscar Robales, myself, Paul Wilson, and Eddie Kahura. We have a rotating set of officer roles. This year I serve as treasurer. Hans-Peter is the chair. Permanent secretariat is hosted by APNIC, and Herman serves as our executive secretary and has support as well from Lorena. We have coordination groups. Each of the various functions that's in an RIR actually has to be coordinated across the RIRs. So we have communications, engineering, registration services, and public safety coordination groups that meet and make sure that when we do something with the what we use for schemas for who is, or when we're making joint communications, that we do it appropriately. We also have informal coordinating activities, public affairs, policy, finance, legal, human resources. It is interesting. The RIRs are each their own organization, but we actually work best as one coordinated set of functions, and so it does take a bit of work. Next slide. We publish a few things. The Internet Number Resources Status Report, which gives the status of the number resource pools, including the ones at the IANA, and the allocations that have gone out to each of the RIRs. Global stats on IPv4, IPv6, and ASNs. RPKI adoption report showing the amount of coverage of the RPKI certificate trees. All of those are available at nro.net/stats. We do a comparative policy overview. This is actually an interesting document. I'd recommend everyone take a chance to look at it when you have a moment, which compares the various policy sections of our policy manual. So what the policy rules for transfer are in the ARIN region, APNIC, RIPE, LACNIC, etc. What our policies are for IPv6 transition block or ASN issuance. You can actually get a good cross RIR view of what's in common and what's different regarding our policies, and that gets updated periodically. Next slide. We do, in terms of how we do all this, we have a general operations budget of about $480,000 a year. That handles the secretariat support, the chair of the ASOAC's travel, and coordination group meeting expenses. All of the work of us getting together and doing the coordination and any of the tasks that we have to do jointly. It also includes, we have IGF contribution that we make of $150,000 to support both the overall international Internet Governance Forum, but some of the regional forums and support activities. We also have a contribution to ICANN. So every year we give a contribution to ICANN. It has two pieces: the IANA contract, the SLA Services Level Agreement with IANA for administration of the unallocated common free pools, $650,000, and the voluntary contribution, the remainder, is about $173,000 a year. We've donated $183,000 to ICANN since ICANN's inception. The RIRs predate ICANN, so but we've been supporting them every year as a part of the ecosystem. We also have a stability fund. Each RIR has pledged to make available resources if necessary to support an RIR that might have a financial challenge. Collectively, the pledges are over $2 million US, and you can find more details at the Joint RIR Stability Fund. While we've all pledged money to that, we actually hold our individual pledges, and it's only we only put those into the fund if needed. There has so far been no request to the Joint RIR Stability Fund, though we've made sure we're standing by if necessary. Next slide. Cost distribution. We look at the total sizes of each of the RIRs, and that changes year by year. We use a comparison between them, and that's how we do the allocation. So you saw the costs, then we have to allocate those costs according to this percent. RIPE NCC is the largest, 39.9%, and then after that, ARIN, APNIC, LACNIC, and AFRINIC. Next slide. The IANA Review Committee, we have a couple of responsibilities we do. One of them is, according to ICANN bylaws, we have the ability to have an IANA, actually according to our service level agreement, we have an IANA Review Committee which reviews the service level of the IANA numbering services. So when an RIR needs more ASNs or IPv6 space and it puts a request in, that becomes an IANA request. It's fulfilled by the Public Technical Identifiers organization at ICANN. But they report back, and we annually have a community committee that reviews how they've done in handling our requests. It's fairly straightforward, but it's just to make sure we have a performance review function in place. Next. The review committee for the IANA services for 2021 is there on the slide. From the ARIN region, we have Louis Lee, Martin Hannigan, and John Sweeting. Next slide. The ICANN empowered community. So in the IANA stewardship transition that happened just a few years back, the NTIA US government relinquished its contract over ICANN and said, we'd like ICANN to instead contract with each of the respective communities. That's how we ended up with a service level agreement with ICANN for running the number pools. That's why the IETF has an MOU with ICANN regarding the protocol parameters. The DNS community is actually a function of ICANN. It ICANN coordinates and organizes the DNS community, but ICANN's also the IANA PTI, Public Technical Identifier function. Because both of those are in ICANN, the ICANN bylaws were changed to provide an oversight function just to make sure that ICANN's operating appropriately and that the community has the ability to affect change with ICANN if necessary. So there is this function called the ICANN Empowered Community, which ratifies budgets or has the opportunity to not ratify budgets, strategic plans, changes to the board of directors of ICANN. So we have a set of procedures so we can uphold our role. We, as one of the empowered community members, have one of the votes in the empowered community function. We have procedures for how we approve, how we might reject, how we might remove directors from ICANN. All of these can be found online. In general, ICANN has performed exemplary, and the empowered community has never really had a significant issue, but you can read all about it online if you're interested. Next. ASO review. The ICANN bylaws provides for a periodic review of the ASO's effectiveness within ICANN. Since the NRO serves as the ASO, we have to periodically review our effectiveness within the ICANN structure. We conducted our first review in 2011, our second one in 2017. You can find information of both of those online. We'll be doing another one coming up next year. It's interesting because we're really reviewing how well we do those parts within ICANN that support the functions like the IANA Global Number Registry. There hasn't been a lot of global number resource policies, so it's a little bit challenging to review how well we're doing, but still worth reading. Sometimes it points out some of the more interesting or Byzantine aspects of how we're organized. And as I said, there's one coming up next year. We will have a third party do an independent review of our effectiveness within the ICANN structure. Next slide. IR community consultation for the implementation of the recommendations. Out of our 2017 recommendations, we did a consultation on the community about how to implement those recommendations. And the NRO NC and the ASO got together and looked and came up with implementation steps. We're actually gone through and implemented a number of those. Some of those are terminology issues. Some of those are updating the website, whether it's the NRO NC website or the ASO website, to make sure that's clearer, because sometimes all of this is not straightforward if you haven't been steeped in it for 10 years. So to that end, if you want to see the status of our our implementation of the last set of recommendations, you can go online and find it there under the ASO Review 2017 section. Next slide. The NRO projects. We have a number of projects ourselves. One is to review the MOU that we used to form the NRO, and we actually did an update of the NRO MOU as a result. We're doing an NRO strategic review, which will happen, started now, and it'll run through next April. And that's to try to look at what is it that the NRO needs to do, what's in scope, what's its what defines a success criteria. And that's pretty important because the RIRs have to work together effectively, and the NRO is the function we use. So we're doing a little strategic review to make sure the NRO is all that it can be, but also that it's not more than it should be. And then, of course, as I noted, the ASO review every 5 years, or 3 to 5 years. We have one coming up. We have the ASO review again scheduled for 2022. Hopefully we'll have all the items from 2017 complete by that time. Next slide. That's it. Welcome to the whirlwind tour of the Number Resource Organization. I'll take questions if there are any.
And we're looking for questions, reminders to include your affiliation in your questions. Mr. Curran, it appears it was perfectly clear and that everyone has everything they need. Oh, Mr. Anderson has appeared.
Nope, I'm just getting
You're ready for the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And at this time, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Paul Anderson for his board update. I'm sorry, board chair update.
Well, just mini board update before we get into open mic. Just because I know that this is, again, not the format that we've been used to. It's been obviously a struggle for all of us not to be able to travel. And even though we are going to have our formal members meeting in Minneapolis in a few weeks, I thought I would just give a quick couple-minute update on just some of the stuff that the board's been actively working on. So so we have not been able to meet ourselves in person for the majority of the year, although, however, we did manage to actually have a hybrid where some of the board was able to make it to an in-person meeting, and the rest came in through a more hybrid approach, and we're hoping that approach works well for PPM. A lot of our work, again, we're not involved in operations. We have a very amazing professional staff of almost 100 bodies throughout the Reston and Northern Virginia area and Washington area that take care of all the day-to-day activities that make the organization tick. But some of the focus that we've had on is we've continued to try and establish a series of KPIs, just give a good idea of the health of the organization. We've been, again, seeing some of the fruits of a lot of the investments we made in product development. As many of you saw, we had the enhanced services plan launch earlier this year, and it's been great success and a lot of great feedback. One area that we've been taking a high level look at as well is just from security. It's always an omnipresent issue. This is nothing new, but we've worked with staff, and as you know, they've brought on some new hires to really just look at security from all angles to make sure that, given ARIN's key role, that we're making sure that there's good investments in that. And we're hoping that that new hire will bring lots of information and potential projects both to the staff and us. Many of you are aware that we did work on the fee harmonization, and that proposal has passed, and the information is out there. We appreciate the feedback that we got, good and not good. We understand that some rates went up and nobody likes raising rates, but we do hope that in the end this is seen as a more equitable and fairer method of distribution. As John mentioned, we did spend quite a bit of time on the AFRINIC situation. We put out our statements to that effect. We don't really have much more to say on that other than we obviously do have a lot of attention on that right now. From a governance standpoint, we've had a governance working group working throughout the last 2 years, just looking at a whole host of issues in terms of just structure and board efficiency, what's the right tenure and people to have around the table from that standpoint. We're hoping to have some proposals for the community. This has been ongoing work for some time, and I know that it's been a topic of recent attraction, but it is something that we've already had a lot of ideas and concepts that will come, and we're hoping to have proposals for community and member feedback hopefully by the end of the year. Including, we did have some good discussion on board succession as another area that we've worked on. I did indicate to the board earlier this year that I would not be seeking re-election. It's funny when I talked about Louis about why is it I can never remember Louis not being on the ASOSCs, because I joined my first ARIN meeting 18 years ago. So we've put into, we think, a good plan and some discussions on that to ensure that there's good continuity. But having said that, I do hope that for those that are going to be able to be in Minneapolis, that be able to see you and see you, and good to see old friends. It's been a great pleasure meeting many of you over the many years. And for those that can't make it, I do hope that we'll be able to touch base online at some point. So that's all I wanted to bring. It was just a very short update. I'll have a more fulsome board update in Minneapolis. And with that, we will move into our open microphone. Hopefully John can appear, and John and I are happy to take your questions, comments, or concerns on anything you've heard over the last 2 days, or any issues that you want to raise. We have the whole team here, and I see we have our first hand up. So why don't we go to that hand?
Apologies. Mercedes, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Oh, she must be having technical difficulties.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
I see this
just wanted
comment
to
from.
say thank you for letting me listen in on ARIN 48. It's been very instructive. I must say, I don't remember pushing the request to say anything. So let me just have this opportunity to say it's good to see everybody, and I look forward to the rest of the meetings.
Yep, and just to clarify that, you raise a good point. This is only the end of our 2 days of public policy, but we have our virtual election forum coming up, and as I mentioned, we are back to back with NANOG, which will be the first in-person meeting that we've had since the pandemic. Kind of all threw us in for a bit of a loop. It will be a hybrid meeting, so you will have the ability to participate either remotely or virtually. And at this point, we'll be having some great content. It's kind of an extended members meeting, but there will be some other items, and I think we have a good keynote lined up. So it'll be great if you can tune in. Okay, I don't know, John, unless you see any hands flying up.
No, I don't.
They've expunged it all on the great policy discussions we had. So if there are no other further comments or questions, I think we can turn. Oh, David Farmer has a question. After listening to the ARIN grant report by E. Marie Brealey from yesterday, it seems to me that an optional field for an organization to discuss its domain names could be handy to help correlate domains with organizations for research purposes, and probably more generally as well. Did you have any thought? I assume that is, David, just a comment on the great output of the grant program, and you're not, or is that a suggestion that ARIN may want to start getting into that? Thank you. Okay, yes, he says yes. So thanks for that comment, Dave. Oh, both, he says. He does think that ARIN has an involvement. Well, John, that's definitely a you question.
So the question would come up is whether or not the community wants to have an optional field to associate a set of domain names with their address blocks. And, you know, that's not something, aside from the implementation, that's not something that ARIN does a lot with, but if the community thought it was useful, it would have to be a structured field to be useful. Obviously, there's ability to put comments in records right now, but if you want to do any data analysis, you really need to have this in a structured field. So not a problem there. The question is, does the community want it? I would suggest if a group of people think would be a valuable research, a valuable item, you could come to ARIN and say you want to do it, either as a suggestion. I don't think it needs to be policy. It does change the format of our records, but it's really a question of whether or not the field will get used. I don't want to put something in the Who Is records that no one's actually going to deploy. So get a group of people who are interested in that, and we're happy to implement it.
Okay. Well, I will, since there's no other comments or questions, I will vanish. I think, John, you are going to end us off. So I will thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Very good. And Paul, thank you for doing an excellent job in chairing this session. And I'd like to do the wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for coming for today's policy discussions. I'd like to thank our sponsors, USI, Unbelievably Simple Internet, and Lumen. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have this session today. So thank you, thank you. Survey reminder, we'll be sending a survey out. Please complete your survey reminder. It's very important for us for getting feedback as to how we run these meetings, particularly as we change up the format as we've done for this. There's also a small chance to win an iPad, which could be fun. So you'll get a reminder in the mail. Please fill it out, the online survey. Let us know how we're doing in the session. And join us on October 28th, we have the ARIN election forum. So at 12 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be having a election forum where you'll hear about the candidates for the ARIN AC and the ARIN Board of Trustees, and the candidates will answer the questions that were submitted by everyone. So a great opportunity to learn more about the candidates before the upcoming election opens up in a few weeks. And one more slide. Is that it? No more slides. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Join us on October 28th for the election forum. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy your afternoon.